You've heard it a million times. He kicked the bucket. It's casual. It's funny. It's the go-to phrase when we don't want to say the dreaded word, death. But here's the thing. The innocent phrase, kick the bucket, comes from one of the grimmest, strangest, and most uncomfortable stories in the English language. Let's rewind. Picture this. England, 16th century. Executions weren't rare spectacles. They were public entertainment. Gallows stood tall, crowds gathered, and people cheered as criminals met their end. But not everyone swung from ropes tied to trees or scaffolds. Some poor souls were hung from beams placed across barns or stables. These beams were often used to hang slaughtered animals, pigs, sheep, cows. And below these beams, a bucket. Why? Because butchers placed a bucket underneath to catch the blood as the animal was killed. Now here's the gruesome twist. When people were executed in barns or farmhouses, they stood on a bucket while the rope was tightened around their neck. And when the executioner was ready, the bucket was kicked away. The condemned literally kicked the bucket, and that was it. Game over. Yes. The phrase we casually drop into sitcoms and coffee conversations today began as execution slang. But wait, there's another explanation equally disturbing. In rural England, when a pig was slaughtered, it was hung upside down by its heels from a wooden beam called a bucket. Yes, the word bucket once referred to a wooden frame or yoke. As the animal died, it thrashed violently, literally kicking the bucket it was tied to. Imagine the sounds. Squealing, rattling, and a bucket rocking back and forth. It was such a common sight that locals started saying it whenever anything or anyone died. So, whether it's humans swinging from gallows or pigs squealing in barns, kick the bucket has one thing in common. Death, buckets, and violent kicks. How did this grisly slang become popular? The earliest written record of kick the bucket dates back to the 1780s in Grose's Dictionary of the Vulgar Tongue. By then, it was already a well-known expression in England's countryside. Farmers, butchers, and executioners used it literally. Townsfolk borrowed it figuratively. By the 19th century, the phrase had hopped across the Atlantic. Americans loved slang that made death sound cheeky, and kick the bucket fit perfectly. Instead of saying he died, you could lighten the mood or soften the tragedy. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the phrase was everywhere, from Hollywood comedies to newspaper obituaries. Characters in TV shows casually announced someone kicked the bucket, as if they were talking about spilled milk. The phrase transformed from something soaked in blood to something sprinkled with humor. And here's where things get weird again. Some historians argue that kick the bucket isn't about gallows or pigs at all. Instead, it may have come from Catholic tradition. In old Catholic homes, when someone died, a bucket of holy water was placed at their feet. Visitors would sprinkle water as a blessing for the departed soul. So when someone died, they were said to have kicked the bucket, literally lying beside one. Creepy coincidence? Or another layer of death bucket symbolism? Either way, death never seems to escape the bucket. So why buckets? Because buckets were everywhere in the old world. Buckets caught blood. Buckets carried water. Buckets supported beams. Buckets sat at the feet of the dead. Buckets were humble household tools that, for centuries, silently stood by during life's messiest moments: birth, work, and death. No wonder the bucket became a silent symbol of the end. Here's the crazy part. Today, millions of people use kick the bucket without knowing they're invoking executioners, bleeding pigs, or funeral water rituals. We say, "Grandpa kicked the bucket at 92. That old car finally kicked the bucket. One more late payment and my Wi-Fi subscription will kick the bucket." The phrase survived because it does what humans always do. We laugh at death. We shrink the terrifying into something funny. We soften the finality of life into a punchline. But every time you hear or say it, remember, behind the humor is the echo of a dangling rope, a squealing pig, or a priest sprinkling holy water at a corpse's feet. So the next time someone says, "Kick the bucket," don't just laugh. Picture the gallows. Picture the pig. Picture the bucket rocking on the floor. And remember, The things we say so casually today are often built on centuries of history.